Good evening, everyone. Make sure I got this where I want it. Hang on just a second. There we go. That's better. Good morning. Good evening. We are jumping in tonight to part two. We were talking yesterday about spiritual equity and how when you spend alone time with the Lord, that it builds up the value of your connection. It builds up the value, and by your connection, I mean with others. The value that you provide just in your everyday interactions. And we discussed that a little bit yesterday. And I believe that I felt the Lord so strong last night, really put his hand on me last night, and I could feel his endorsement as to say, I'm really thankful that you heard me here. I'm really thankful that you brought this. This is I feel like he was telling me last night, this is very important teaching. Hang on a second. I think I got something on this camera. It keeps wanting to focus in and out. Just give me a quick second, guys. All right. I feel like he was putting his endorsement on it last night of the importance of this word. I do believe that it really does. I believe that it's important to him that we grasp this word and really try to make it fit in our lives. Really do what we can to make this thing fit. Let me back this thing up. I'm having some technical issues here with this. There we go. Let's back this up a little bit. So today, sorry, trying to get some things, just trying to get used to all this still. Today we're going to go into the mind as a battlefield. Now we're talking about the importance of your mind being the secret place. It's the place where it's the place where you can encounter the Lord. It's a place where you can there we go. It's a place where you can encounter the Lord. It's a place where you can find peace. It's a place where you can grow. There's a lot of benefits to opening up the understanding of the importance of your mind. It's very, 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 very important from a spiritual perspective to know that there's great use to your mind being a sanctuary where you guard yourself. I had a guy today, and I won't tell the exact situation, but I had a guy today was talking to me, and he was kind of sharing with me about his son's about to come of a certain age, and because he's coming to a certain age, he could, he wanted to kind of engage with him on an adult level. Let's just leave it at that. And he was kind of bragging on some of the things that he was going to do, and what he was going to, show his new adult son. What entertainment looks like and all these kinds of things. I'm the wrong guy to have that conversation with because I'm not a person that ever will normalize. Like, I am not okay with normalizing sinful behavior, leading your children into sinful behavior, attaching them to something that's not of God. I'm like, I literally told him, I'm the worst person you could have said that to. I said, because I totally don't agree with you doing that. And I said, if you're sharing that with me, like trying to get my opinion on something, like I could not disagree with that more. Like, that's absolutely crazy that you're doing that. I cannot believe that. Um, but to me, the mind is a very important thing. What you introduce and how you think and how you operate, it affects the people that you're around. And so in that moment, I just resisted it. And I'm like, man, I'm not all right with that. I don't think that's okay. I don't want to normalize sinful behavior. I don't want to normalize like that's the rite of passage. and go get a voter's card. Go show him how to balance a checkbook. You want to show him adulthood? There you go. Do something like that. This other thing that you're talking about, man, I understand not everybody thinks and breathes and lives the same way, and of course I give grace for everyone to be able to navigate their own lives. But my goodness, if you're going to bring that up in a conversation, are you trying to get my reaction? Because I gave it to you. The mind is a battlefield. Ephesians 6:12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers. That word wrestle, it signifies a struggle that takes vigilance and strength, meaning this war you have got to be vigilant on. And the way, not just being aware, but being aware, prepared, and equipped. We talked a little bit about being prepared mentally. It's important to be prepared and equipped in order to face this battle. So it's as much about awareness. It's just as much about vigilance in order to properly navigate these wars that we're regularly engaged with. Now, I want you to take a second, if you haven't already, and I want you to click that share button and put it on your page and let our friends and family know that we are live. I'm doing so right now as we speak. But we have to be vigilant. We have to be aware, realizing that there is a war that is waging. It's important to recognize the mental battles that are trying to corrode your ability to communicate and discern, to bring input to the world. So in that moment, I'm sorry, I couldn't accept that. I know people are like, hey, Aaron, don't rock the boat. He's in charge of his own life. I know. He could have just as easily kept that piece of the conversation to himself, but he brought it into my world. You can do whatever you want to do, but you bring it into the public eye, and you're sitting there having a conversation with me. It's as if by me not saying something, I didn't want him to think I was accepting that. That as being normal. It's like in his mind, he was almost like, this is kind of what we do. And I'm like, that is not what we do. And that's not something that I would ever, as a mentor, a father figure, I would ever try to bring my child into something like that. That blows my mind of what is normal in our society and what they are normalizing right now. There are things that people are just bringing up that it's just normal now. People, they have sex before they're married and they live with each other and it's normal to live with each other, and that's fine. Listen, I never want to normalize someone who doesn't want to go into a covenant and don't step into that next because I'm an advocate for the will of God. For every person that comes into my world, I do not believe that you are fully following after the will of God if you refuse to enter into a covenant in your relationship, but and you don't but you try to do all the things that covenant does, and try to have a conversation with me like, oh, that's just what we do now. That's what society is. It's normal. That's not normal. It's not normal. I'm not normalizing that. I'm not okay with that. It's not something that I'm just going to sit down and just flippantly let that come in and out of a conversation without them feeling some kind of resistance. And my hope is this, that any time that there is someone trying to normalize ungodly behavior where I'm around, that it's not comfortable. And the reason why I hope that it's not comfortable is you put off an aroma if you've been spending time with the Lord. You put off a fragrance. There's something out there that is beckoning people, I believe, to feel the attributes of God. It's the love of God. This is not me being critical, and I know it sounds like that. Now, I'm not trying to be critical or sound critical. I just know that there is a will of God that I would love with all of my heart for you to fully plug into, and that's what I'm an ambassador of. I'm an ambassador of saying, listen, there's a Jeremiah 29:11 plan for your life. And if you would just tap into that. And so the conviction is not, I don't want them to be around me and feel bad. I want them to be around me and feel like there's more that I have the ability to grab if I would just get a hold of it. I want to reframe the way that I'm going at this. I feel like I need to correct myself even right now, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm just trying to be critical and hypercritical and you get around me and I'm confrontational. I'm not confrontational. But I do believe that there are values that I'm responsible for reminding people of, and that would bring peace and encouragement and love. Not that I'm trying to say you're making all the wrong decisions, shape up, be better. That's not my hope My hope is that people would come around, and in that interaction like what I had today, that they would realize that there's more available, and that I could really lead my child to enriching things and not get them stuck into generational lust issues or alcoholic issues. Or what I would love to know that I could, really bring some true value to their life and not just shock the daylights out of them with something. And so my hope is just to bring an enriching environment where you could truly have a man to man or a woman to woman or man to woman conversation with your child as they're entering into adulthood, and just tell them how proud you are of them, how thankful you are for them, and do what you can to truly get them a blessing and not potentially tether them to a lifetime of issues. And that's my heart. I don't want to sound critical, so let me correct myself, because I don't want to sound hypercritical. It's not what my hope was, but I do want to be able to stand up for the godly things, because the mind is a battlefield, and there's the enemy's regularly trying to normalize things that we need to stop normalizing. Struggle should not be normalized. It shouldn't be something that we just have to learn to live with. I believe there's a way to have struggles in your life but not be defined by the struggle. I believe there's a way to have struggles in your life and have joy and peace and the fruits of the Spirit, which I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I don't want us to get so stuck on normalizing things that truly may not be normal, and it may not be God's best for our lives. So we've got to recognize the mental battles, and when we do that, it allows us to equip ourselves spiritually when we recognize the battles, and we got to make sure that we are anchored in Christ. So by normalizing that conversation and not having some kind of I don't know, and you don't have to necessarily say anything. There's times where people will bring something up in my area, and I'll just go, whoo. I don't necessarily go engage with it, but I'll let them know, like, me and you aren't in the same vein on that, man. We're just not. And I love you. We're going to agree to disagree, but they don't normally go very far into it, because a lot of people don't really care what you think about certain things. They're going to do them one way or another. Today was one of those moments where I did more than just go, woo. I'm like, that's not okay. Like, that's not typical. But anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is the fruit of the Spirit, and the fruit of the Spirit in your thoughts. Galatians 5:22 through 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, and so on. That word fruit, it's the visible evidence of an inward transformation. So it's an inward transformation that is showing itself on the outside of your life. I could not be inwardly changed and let something come into my world that I just knew wasn't of God. I didn't want it to even think that it was going to find community on my mind. Now, it wasn't that person. It was because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And I let that principality know, I am not a place for you to hang out. I am not a place for you to find comfort. I am not a place for you to find community. We don't do lust in here. We don't play that game. We don't do alcohol in here. We don't do cursing in here. We don't play that game. So don't think that you can come in here and this is a place that you can just, get by with whatever, type of I don't say ungodly, but flesh, carnal driven. It's not a carnal driven environment. So I don't want any spirit to think that it can just find a resting place when I'm in that room. I am not okay with carnally driven things. I want to make sure that we are all doing what we can to tap into our purpose, and that the fruit of the Spirit, love and joy and peace, like that just is emanating from us. As we begin to cultivate our minds in the Spirit, we begin to bear fruit that blesses those that are around us. Standing firm in a situation, that could be a blessing, because, after that gentleman, which I had a great, after that moment, we kind of laughed it off, had a few, he kind of laughed it off because he knew that he had stepped into my world. And he's like, oh, okay, I know, I forgot who I was talking to. And there's another one of the guys that worked for me, he's like, that's probably the worst person you could have said that to. And I'm like, man, come on, bro. And it was a way for me to kind of lovingly, and, we were a bunch of guys, in a barber shop. And in that moment, I was able to still be one of the guys, but one of the godly one of the guys. And the guys around were affected by it, saying, and it blessed me in a way, because like one of my guys was like, his fruit doesn't work with that. Like he could see the fruit on my life, and that blessed me. and they were saying, that's the wrong person to find, get an attaboy from. And that, in a way, and that blessed me. And I didn't make I didn't make it awkward. I really didn't. But I did stand firm in what I believed, and tried to just put little nuggets of a little bit correction, and which probably didn't mean anything to him, but I still did it. And the guys, they were like, after the moment, they're like, they themselves didn't come into agreement with it. And to me, that was a blessing. I believe that standing for truth and standing, without putting a bunch of pressure on people, but being able to stand for what you believe and how you live your life, to let that speak loud, because, afterward, I believe it's comforting to know, hey, listen, man, it's good to know there's kind of an old-fashioned, old school, but he's a young guy. He's 40. Not really young, but young enough. 40's young for some. To say, hey, here's a guy, he's 40 years old, but he's kind of old-fashioned. I kind of like that, because in a world that's going crazy, I'd love to see somebody with some fruit because they've spent some time with the Lord. Your world, the world around you, they would love to know that they are in community with somebody who spends time with the Lord, and the fruit that shows that. It's a blessing to the people around you. So winning those battles, you put off an aroma that truly is a blessing to those around you, even though sometimes you kind of, like today, we kind of, had one of them moments. It was kind of no. Even though there was a no moment, it was still refreshing, there's still people with morals. There's still people that don't just go with this is the new generation. I don't play all that stuff. I'm a part of the Bible generation, and that it doesn't matter what the year is, it's always relevant. And I think it's a high time that we stand in those places. And it's refreshing. Your world will be refreshed when you have won the battle up here. Whenever you wage war and realize that the mind is a battlefield, and you consistently win that and represent Christ well, it is a pressure relief to the world around you, and they are blessed by your victories, by your fruit, and it brings peace to them, and it gives them a hope. There's a hope floating around that don't normally float around whenever there's people who've been winning this battle in their heart, spending time with the Lord. Don't forget that my time with the Lord, it matters, and my thoughts matter, and it builds spiritual equity. And so whenever I come into a room, there's equity, there's value that just lives there without you having to tell everybody about it. That presence just lives with you. It's just with you when you come into any room, no matter where you are. When you come in, there's an equity that comes, there's a value that comes in with you that you don't have to announce. It announces itself. There's an aroma. There's a fragrance. Keep winning those battles. I promise you, it's going to bless you more than you can ever imagine. Hebrews 10:24-25, it says, and let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, that we should come together. Let me read that whole scripture. Let's see, Hebrews 10:24. Let me turn there real quick. Hebrews 10. Oh, I love the Word of God, don't you? Let us consider and give attentive, continuous care to watching over one another. This is the Amplified. Studying how we may stir up, stimulate, and incite to love and helpful deeds and noble activities, not forsaking or neglecting to assemble together as believers, as is the habit of some people, but admonishing, which means warning, urging, and encouraging one another, and all the more faithfully as you see that day approaching. So when we are cultivating a healthy mind, there is a desire to get around believers like yourselves. There is a desire that you don't get. If you're unhealthy up here, and there's offenses up here, there's pride up here, there's a lack of unity up here, you don't have a desire to want to be around. You've tried to find the scriptures that tell you that you don't have to be around other people. You try to find the scriptures that say I don't have to go to church. You try to find the scriptures that say the Bible doesn't really tell me I have to do that. And you're finding arguments as to why you don't have to go to the church. And many times that happens because of there's hurt that's there. There's religion that may be still a part of it. A lack of cooperation. There's a lot of things that will pop up in that moment. But whenever you're healthy, like there's a desire for you to get around to encourage other people, and then to be encouraged as well. When I go to church, I don't go there just to be encouraged, even though I am always encouraged whenever I go to the house of God. But I go there I want to be an encouragement. And so spending time throughout the week with the Lord, I come in there with an equity. I come in there with a value that I am blessed to bless others with, and then I'm blessed by their equity. I'm blessed by their value. I love being around people who have spent time with the Lord, and they're not just now coming to spend time with the Lord on Sunday, but they've been spending time with the Lord. That is such a blessing, and it grows your value when you get around other people who have been spending time with the Lord, or maybe being able to give to someone who hasn't been able to establish that relationship. That's a blessing too. That doesn't take away from you. That builds you up as well, to bless somebody that may be learning, and being around you blesses and encourages and motivates them to develop their own walk with the Lord. That also blesses you. That doesn't take away from you. That grows that equity and that value, and God supplies you in greater measure to give to others. God blesses you big time for doing that. And so when you go into the house of God, when you go to a community of believers and you get around them, you are the temple, I get that, but you go and get around other believers, you begin to stir up one another's good works. You just, it's like they're appreciating the value that you've got, and they take that encouraging spoon and they just begin to stir you up, and you begin to stir others up, and you come in there with your value, and you just start to smell the aroma of those who have spent the time with the Lord all week long, and now here we are worshiping together all in the same room. Are you kidding me? Wow, this place is about to explode. There's so much equity. There's so much value. There's so much incredible things that are happening on each of these people's lives, and now we're all in the same room. There's such an overflow and such a unity that ends up happening. Our thoughts influence our contributions to the community. Our thoughts, our winning of the battlefield up here, it influences your contribution to the community, and it creates an environment of love and good works. Whenever you are winning this battle up here, it changes and influences your contribution into such a positive way. You want to be around people because you've got something to bring. Because you've been spending time with the Lord. You've got a trail of mercy and goodness that's following you, and it's stacking up. And you're like, man, I cannot wait to just go and bless somebody with this. Bless somebody with I've been forgiving people all week long. I've been loving people all week long. I've been getting rid of bad moods by loving on the Lord and saying, I can get through this, and learning how to deal with all this stuff. I can't wait to get around somebody and just be a blessing to them. You see, it changes your contribution whenever you have built this mentality of keeping your sanctuary clean and purified, and you're growing the value and seeing the value of being in His presence and what this presence brings, which is a fullness of joy. Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Good works means to reflect the authenticity of your faith. Good works is a reflection of the authenticity of the transformation. You don't want to be good works only without it reflecting something. Good works should reflect transformation. Good works without transformation is I would say useless, but it's not what our focus should be. There are many who do good works apart from transformation and think that good works is where it's at. Paul regularly said, it is not by your works that any should boast. It is by Him. Your good work should be a reflection of transformation. Your good work should be a reflection of what's happened on the inside. They should work hand in hand. So your transformation creates the good works, the fruit of what people see, and then the fruit creates a continued transformation. It's cyclical. It's a cycle that continues to just bless and grow and encourage. So don't get caught up in good works without transformation. So a lot of folks think that they can buy their way in or earn their way in or whatever the case may be. No, you've got to transform your way in. Somebody put that in the comments. You cannot work your way in. You've got to transform your way in. You don't work your way in. You've got to transform your way in. Somebody put that in the comments for me. We don't work our way in. We transform our way in. That's what we're here to do. We've come to transform our way in to value. We're not going to work our way into value. We are transforming our way into value. So when our minds are aligned with God, our actions naturally reflect His goodness, and it impacts other people. So it's a natural thing. I'm not trying to do it. I'm not resentfully doing it. I'm cheerful. The Bible talks about a cheerful giver. I have got no problem giving. Why? I am reflecting what I've been given. All that is a reflection. That's not a mandate. I'm not told to do it. I am reflecting that I have nothing if it wasn't for Him, and I'm watching blessing upon blessing upon blessing hitting my life. But it's a reflection. It's not an obligation. It's a reflection of the blessing that I have in here, and I'm thankful to do it. And finally, I'm going to close with this. Colossians 3:2, set your mind on things above and not on the things of the earth. To set your mind, it talks about a deliberate focus. You've got to be deliberate about this. You've got to have a deliberate focus on heavenly realities. You've got to be deliberate. You've got to put your focus deliberately on things that are above. Joy and peace, goodness and mercy, putting your thoughts on peaceful things, godly things, Jesus's model on the earth. I want to do that. I want to forgive, release. I don't want to hold on to any bitterness. I don't want to harbor anything. I don't want to have anger stirring up in my heart all the time. I don't want to respond that way. I don't want to be spiritually lethargic where I don't feel like doing anything or what. No, I'm gonna pray into the Lord. I'm gonna seek Him. I'm gonna remove the weights because I want to deliberately focus on heavenly realities. When I do that, it's cultivating a heavenly mindset. This is a sanctuary where the Lord resides and works and flourishes and grows and builds equity in your experience with others. Not just your experience with Him, that's perfect and amazing, but then your experience with others, how people experiencing you, they're getting a taste of the Father. They're getting a taste of that heavenly equity that's building up, that heavenly, those qualities that are growing in your heart. It equips us to navigate earthly challenges with grace and purpose because we are eternally focused. Colossians 3:2. We are eternally focused. So we navigate these everyday earthly challenges with an incredible level of grace and purpose because I am eternally focused. I am eternally focused internally. I'm thinking about things that are above. So, in closing, the secret place of our minds, we've got to see it and consider it as a sacred space for communion with God. So watch what you're watching, watch what you're saying, watch what's around you. Don't sit there and just allow things like that to be around you. Put some kind of resistance up. Maybe I don't know about that, man. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that. We're gonna change that subject. That ain't gonna work for me, because it's a space of communion. I don't ever want to just, I don't ever want to be in a place where there's ungodly things that are coming around me and they think that I'm okay with them and endorsing them by my acceptance. I don't ever want to get to that space. We unlock the potential. We unlock the potential to build spiritual equity. Our thoughts that are rooted in goodness and holiness, it allows us to contribute blessing to those around us by reflecting the love and the grace of God. See, it blesses us to reflect that goodness. So we've got to commit to spending intentional time with the Lord. And this is my closing statement. You've got to commit to spending intentional time with the Lord. Guard your mind against distractions and allow His Spirit to flow through you. And when you do that, you will be impacting your world for His glory. Guard your mind, guard your heart. I've gone a little bit over tonight, but this is the last of this particular series. I think I may be having one tomorrow too. The Lord put something on my heart about abiding. And so I may go into that. It may be a different time because we've got some things planned for tomorrow evening. And so I may come on at a different time. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do on that yet, but I'm going to be researching tonight about abiding. I've been enjoying my time with Him. Well, I've been enjoying my time with you too, and I'm proud of you for hopping on these classes with me. Tonight, I did, like I said, go a little bit beyond, but I wanted to get finished with this particular one tonight because I do feel a new one's brewing on. So I'm going to start researching and studying on that and get something ready for you, because as long as you're hungry, God's going to stay cooking. And so we want you to be filled and overflowing. Love you so much. Thank you for spending some of your Thursday night with me. Just stay tuned because I think I may go again tomorrow night. So we'll just kind of see what happens for tomorrow sometime. But I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see you guys out there